Hello, I am David.
I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Brienne.
And this is Now Let's Be Honest About Movies, and we are here for some Justice League, specifically Zack Snyder's Justice League, spoiler talk. It's been a long road here, and real quick, before we actually get into the spoiler discussion, I'm just going to ask y'all's relationship to these DC cinematic movies. So let's start with Brienne, and how do you relate to these movies? Just so people have context in your relationship to them.
Like what I've watched?
Yes.
Okay, I've seen Batman vs. Superman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen Man of Steel.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen the first original Superman movie, right?
Yes, but that doesn't tie into this one.
Okay.
Yeah, so you...
And I've seen both Wonder Womans.
Yes.
Yes, and that's about it.
Yeah, and you haven't seen Aquaman, you haven't seen Suicide Squad, you haven't seen any of that.
Yeah.
But you've seen Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and then both Wonder Womans. Okay,
yes.
What about you?
I have seen everything. I think I've seen everything up to the point of where this movie takes place. So I haven't seen the new Wonder Woman, but that's afterwards.
Okay.
And I don't think there was anything else. I mean, I did see. We were talking about this, the Aquaman. I've seen it, but I fell asleep during it. So.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that whole story, but it's not super critical to it.
Have you seen Shazam?
I have seen Shazam.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
It's good. I don't know why that was randomly came out.
I don't know, but
I forgot that was part of it.
Was that after or before?
That was after.
Okay, that makes sense then. Because
Yeah.
Superman does show up.
He shows up, but it's not Henry Cavill.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But
Yeah. But yeah, so I've also seen all of the DC movies, as is expected. I see a lot of movies, and so I've seen all these. A big Superman fan, and so I was really excited going into this one. And that's why me and Sean, who's also featured on the channel a lot, we actually recently watched Joss Whedon's Justice League, which is Justice League, the one that this one is fixing, because it was the original one. And we actually recently watched that one and did like a little discussion on why that movie was so bad. But that being said, general thoughts, what did y'all think about this movie? And the way I think we'll do this video is we'll probably I'll ask a question and we'll start with Brienne and then work this way, because I think Jonathan and I usually we tend to talk a lot. And so we'll just start with Brienne so that she can get her say in so that we don't steal her thunder. Right? So real quick, general thoughts about Zack Snyder's Justice League. What'd you think about this movie?
I liked it a lot. I think, I'm a little bit worn out of watching superhero movies, so I think I might be a little biased. My opinion might be a little skewed from that. But it was a good movie. It had really pretty scenes. Artistically, it was really nice. Overall, I thought it was a good movie. It was really long, but it was good.
4 hours.
Yeah.
4 hours and
Never
I
watched
think
a movie
2
that
minutes.
long. Yeah.
Yeah, which I don't think there's been many movies that long.
Yeah,
But
I think so.
Yeah, and Jonathan, what did you think about the movie?
Yeah, it's definitely... I don't know. So, one thing about it is that it is very, continuous. We get to see the full story that we kind of missed parts from. But it almost seems like on too long side. I'm not complaining because I love, superhero stuff too. But I'm trying to think how would they make it shorter but still include everything we need.
Yeah.
Because obviously they didn't do a good job with the original, and I think that's what made this good.
Yeah.
To see that context and see some of those scenes, and just build on a lot of. There was a lot of cool stuff added to it that I wish we could have gotten, and I'm sure that's hard to balance when you're cutting a movie, but yeah.
I think that's the issue, because I think Zack Snyder was kind of dealt a bad hand, because I think that Warner Brothers was so obsessed with catching up with Marvel that they wanted to jump in so much, they wanted to include so much stuff in this movie, and so he basically told them, he was like, hey, if you're wanting me to include all this stuff, it's gonna be a 4-hour movie.
Right.
And they were like, well, we can't do that, so they wanted him to accomplish this task, but weren't allowing him to actually do it the right way.
Right.
Because you really needed that much time to do all of it, and that's why this movie, I think, works out, but it is really, really long.
Yeah, because some of the scenes, we have extra scenes for Barry, which if we had a separate movie for Barry Allen, we wouldn't need all that.
Yes.
Same thing for Cyborg. If we had a separate movie for Cyborg, we wouldn't need all that build-up and stuff. Because they're kind of origin stories stuck into a movie about all of them.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. Whereas Marvel, they were able to pace it out because they had Iron Man, Iron Man 2, Incredible Hulk. They had all these different things that were building up to the Avengers. You had Captain America, you had Thor, you had all these things setting it up. Whereas this one, you had Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, boom, Justice League.
Yeah.
So.
And also, if they had made those movies, maybe they could have put scenes about mother boxes into that too, so they wouldn't even have to explain all that. So, but they had to just explain all this different stuff all together in one movie. Yeah,
and so I see where it really just seems like Warner Brothers, they're the true villains of this, even more than Steppenwolf and Darkseid, because they really. It's unfortunate because I think Zack Snyder did well with it, but unfortunately it had to be 4 hours long. Yeah. And I'm not complaining because I like like anything that involves like these characters specifically.
Yeah.
I like more content with them, but I will say it was long, but it almost felt like 2 movies because we did take a little break in between. We watched parts 1 through 4, and then parts 5 and 6 in the epilogue. So we took a little break in between, went and did some other stuff, and came back. And to me, that did help break it up.
Yeah,
but
and it's very episodic, so you could think of it as like 7 seasons of a show, or you know,
7
whatever.
episodes.
Yeah, 7 episodes. Sorry.
Yeah, it's almost like we binge watched a show.
Yeah,
like it's like we watched
kinda.
the whole season in one sitting, basically.
So
or 2 sittings.
If you think of it like that, I think it's not too bad.
It makes it a bit better. But as a movie, like even in theaters, they're putting an intermission, which I actually think is kind of cool.
Yeah,
it kind of is a callback to the older style of things, and I don't know. I just think that's really neat. But that being said, my general thoughts also. If you can't tell, I really like this movie. Especially, I think that I like this movie even more because I recently watched the other one. Because I think that... I really wish that I'd gotten to see this first, originally, because I think then I would be able to tell better whether or not it's actually just a good movie by itself. But having rewatched the other one recently, it made this movie all the better. Because I was like, oh, this movie's like it almost felt like a masterpiece in comparison. Because you actually get to see the director's vision being enacted. Like, you actually have a consistent tone, consistent pacing. It actually flows a lot better. So, in comparison, it feels like a masterpiece. And it's kind of like, I almost wish I hadn't seen the Justice League one. Because then I'd be able to actually approach it from, like, is this a good movie?
Yeah.
So it kind of changes things. But in comparison, I've got to say, this movie, like, it's like a 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah. And like we talked about, there's things added that make the characters more likable, and like you know, so. Yeah,
so I think we'd all agree. I mean, you haven't seen the original Justice League.
I haven't seen the first one, and I can say that I enjoyed it as a movie by itself without seeing the other one. So.
And I actually went out of my way. Brienne's been kind of my guinea pig with all these movie watching things because I've been able to kind of, like, she hasn't seen, like, anything. And so I've been able to be like, okay, well, I'm not going to show you the original Justice League so that when we watch the Zack Snyder one, that'll be your first experience with it. Yeah. So I was basically vicariously living through her so that she could be the person who experiences it where I did not get
to. I think that's probably why you find so much enjoyment. It's like, I always think when I'm watching a movie I really like, it's like, oh man, I wish I could watch it for the first time again. Yeah. And you get to do that through other people. So.
Well, I think that's why, that's why we do these videos, because there's something like, that's why I go on YouTube to watch people's reviews. Yeah. Because there's something about enjoying that with other people and just sharing that excitement and stuff. So I think that's really cool. And so, if you like this type of stuff, be sure to like this video and subscribe and comment about what you liked down below.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug. But please do that. Like, why haven't you? Like, right now, we're even pausing. We're pausing the discussion for you to do this. And now we're continuing. But that being said, now that we've all agreed that this is probably a better movie than the original, except for Brienne, so I guess 2 of us have agreed because she hasn't seen the original. But take our word, it's better. Okay. And if you want to know why, literally go look at all the negative things I said about the other video, about the other one, and make those positives. Because this movie really, it takes all those negative things and increases them. I will say one comment real quick. There were some things, I've just got to admit this, there were some things in the original one that I attributed to Joss Whedon that turns out that they were Zack Snyder stuff. Like, there was, like, this one thing I talked about where Joss Whedon, it seems like he did kind of hypersexualize Wonder Woman. Where there were some things where he kind of, like, I don't know, it was weird. Like, the Flash trips and, like, lands on her chest and everything. And that was weird. But there was one scene in particular where I was kind of uncomfortable in the Joss Whedon one because it looked like it was, like, aiming up Wonder Woman's skirt. But that one was actually in this film, too. And so it seems like that was a Zack Snyder, like, shot. But I don't have as much of a problem with that in this one. Because it seems like Zack Snyder, he's not doing that in, like a sexual way. Because, I mean, Zack Snyder's the same guy who gave us, like, 300 and stuff. And so it seems like he's somebody who just genuinely appreciates, like, the artistic form and stuff. And so, like, whenever he's doing these angles, it's not like he's, like, being gratuitous with it. Right. And so even how it was filmed in this one, I can't even explain it, but the structure of the whole scene felt
she was weird to me. In that part, she's standing up high and it's looking down. Like, it's not, like... It kind of makes sense, the shot that's being taken. So I mean,
so it was, for some reason, in the original movie, it didn't work, but I think that's because of the other stuff in the movie. Right. It made me reread those scenes in a different way. Whereas with with Zack Snyder's version, it seems like he's just more... Like, the reason why he has her up there is because he's trying to elevate her, right? He's basically, like, saying these are gods among men. And so Wonder Woman's up, and so the camera angle looking up at her helps give that perspective, right? It's not just being like, oh, up her skirt.
Yeah, she's also holding someone with her lasso, and he
so
is
you have to
lower
get the
down,
whole
so
shot.
it's almost from his perspective,
Yeah.
and then it goes to her perspective,
Yeah.
and back and forth. So.
Yeah. And so, that being said, real quick, before we actually start talking about the nitty-gritty of this, what was your favorite part of the movie? Brienne, let's start with you.
Okay, I already talked about this. I thought about it before because I knew Dave was going to ask this question because he asked me every time. So I've learned to think about it ahead of time. So my favorite part was Superman coming back to life and his encounter with his mom and Lois. The entire 4 hours, that made it worth it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Just that like small scene. That was perfect.
It was very sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
love it.
there was a lot of stuff. We'll eventually go back and watch Justice League just so you can see it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of parts where they like there's interspersed scenes where they reshot of that particular thing, and it's more cringy in the original one.
Yeah.
Where like Superman fakes like this like kind of Kansas like he's like, yes ma'am, and it's just like really weird.
Yeah.
To where you're like, I feel like this should be a sweet scene, but it
Yeah.
feels off. And so this scene, they pulled it off really, really well.
It was really good.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
Yeah.
And of course, Superman's back, right? Jonathan, what about you? What was your favorite part?
So we're at the point where we can spoil.
Oh,
stuff now.
spoil away.
Gotcha.
Spoil
okay.
away.
So definitely the ending with Flash.
Yeah.
That was such a cool addition. Because I felt like, we all kind of know Flash is super fast. And then we see the scene with him and Superman, and he's like just as fast. And it kind of like lowers his abilities a little bit, because you're like, oh, well, Superman's more powerful. But this scene like really showed like how powerful Flash is, and also how important he is to the team, because he's he kind of seemed like one of the lesser components of the team, but definitely this shows his importance.
Well, especially in the last movie, the highlight of his thing in the last movie, the highlight of what he did, is there was that Russian family that they kept going back to, and it was so dumb. There was this Russian family they kept cutting back to just to show that they were in trouble. Whereas in this movie, they clarify this place is like a nuclear wasteland. Nobody goes here, so there's nobody living here. But there was this Russian family trying to escape all this stuff going on, and the Flash chases after them to like help them move their truck away further, and that's like the height of what the Flash does.
But yeah, that's
He just chases off. He chases behind them to like push their truck further away, and then it's undercut because he turns to his left and Superman's carrying an entire building. And so the highlight of what the Flash does in the other movie is undercut by what Superman does, and it's such a small thing.
Yeah.
Whereas in this movie, the Flash literally saves the world.
Yeah.
And I'd have to say that was my favorite part too, because it came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting it to happen, but literally it's like the mother box is united, and I was like, oh no.
Crap, this is the end.
First off, I expected that it was just going to be, and I thought the Nightmare stuff was going to happen.
Yeah.
I thought that, but then literally the whole world explodes.
Right.
And then I loved how they we'll probably talk about this more when we talk about the Flash, but I just like how they displayed it. Once again, Zack Snyder, he's a very visual director, and so even if his movies are terrible, I can guarantee you they're always going to be pretty, and there's just the whole scenery of all this, Barry Allen's just like, okay, you got to break your one rule, and he just everything just slows down, and then literally he starts stepping, and for a second you're like, what's he doing? And you realize he's literally running the universe back into existence, or the world.
The world's reappearing underneath him as he reverses time.
Yeah, it's that was so cool. It's literally black, empty space, and then with each step, things are rematerializing. And I was like, this is awesome. This guy is powerful. Yeah. It would have been a bad thing if he had not joined them. Right. And I was like, wow, this is real cool. So
I almost felt by the end felt bad for Aquaman, because now I feel like Aquaman didn't bring a whole lot to the team. And that one's a hard.
But he was the first one to stab Steppenwolf.
Yeah.
After that, Steppenwolf boom.
But he was kind of oh wow, this guy just reversed time in front of me. Or I don't even know if he would have known he did that. But anyways,
in a way, Aquaman kind of suffered. But I think he really, we'll talk about this in a second. But I think Aquaman's probably the one who received the least character build up because of this movie, because they really didn't add a whole lot about him. They added a little bit.
We had a movie for him, so I guess that might be a little bit.
That helps out a little bit. But but that being said, okay, so we've talked about our favorite parts. Your favorite part was Superman coming back and reuniting with his women. Yeah. And then our favorite part is the Flash.
The superhero stuff.
Here's the difference between men and women, right? Okay, but now what I'm going to do is we're going to go through the 6 main Justice League members. And then we'll talk about other characters and stuff too. But I'm just going to ask you about the Justice League members and just say the character, and you just tell me your thoughts about them in the movie. Alright, so we're going to start off, and I'm going to kind of go in ascending order of start off with the maybe less important ones. Okay. And then we're going to build up. And so I'm going to start off with the one we were just talking about, Aquaman. Brienne, what did you think about Aquaman?
Okay. I haven't seen the Aquaman movie, so I don't really know much about him. I know that he is, in some way, rules the water. Like, he's something having to do with Atlantis, something like that. He's cool. I feel like I don't have too much to say, just because I don't know a lot about him. I hear a lot of people talk about him.
Jason Momoa.
Yeah, everyone talks about the actor himself, and I've heard a lot of things about, like, him, but not much about his character, so... I don't really think I can vouch for him too much. He's cool. I'm kind of neutral. I'm not, like, for him or against him.
Yeah.
He kind of does have, like, a minor role in the movie, too. Like, he doesn't do too much, so he didn't really stick out. But he's not a bad character, either.
Yeah.
So.
They should have, like, had it, like, set near water or something, you know? Then he could have done some more. But, yeah. What about you?
Yeah, that's what I was going to kind of say. It's, like, the whole movie doesn't really take place in water. There is the scenes, and I think his, like, people are critical because they have one of the mother boxes and his interaction with that. But, like, a lot of his powers are centered around water. So since we don't have a ton of water, we have the scene where it floods, and he kind of helps them in that. So he does help, and he is necessary to the team. But we just don't get to see many powers from him, you know? Yeah. It's mostly just he has the trident, and he's stabbing people with it. So, the fork. I think he's a cool character. It's just hard to, like, when you have a team that's not fighting in water, and that's what his powers are, it's hard to translate that into a fight. So I don't know how you solve that, but I guess just give him powers, like control water outside of water somehow, or I don't know, something like that.
And they did give him some pretty cool moments that kind of called back to his, like, water, like, you know, he's, like, literally surfing the parademon down into the ground, and then then whenever he hops off the surfboard parademon, he, like, shakes off his hair and stuff.
That's true.
So there's little cool moments, but there's really not much to say about him, because really anything I have to say about Aquaman is stuff I could say about him from the original, like the Justice League one, because he doesn't really have a lot of character building here. Yeah. You do have some cool different scenes, you know, where basically just adding more stuff about his relationship to the commoners and stuff. Like the one thing that was cool, I thought, at the very beginning of the movie, whenever Bruce comes to recruit him.
Yes.
First off, in the Justice League one, they use this as a weird way of, like, very lazily telling you about the mother boxes, because they were just, like, these cave paintings, like, on the wall. And they're like, oh yeah, there's mother boxes. And you're like, oh, that's weird. That wasn't in this part. And there were a lot of jokes between Batman and Aquaman they cut out. But right after Aquaman swims away, I actually really like this. Because it's basically like Zack Snyder building his mythology. Because we've talked about this. We talked about this in the video with me and Sean. Zack Snyder kind of portrays these characters like gods among men. It's almost like a modern mythology being developed. Whereas one of my big issues with the other version of the movie is that it kind of just treats these characters like they're Marvel characters. So they're just like people with powers who you can make fun of. And to me, I think that the DC characters they're supposed to be almost revered, right? They're supposed to be these gods among men. And so I really like what Zack Snyder did here, because, you know, Aquaman, he jumps into the water. And then Batman, or Bruce Wayne, he's just watching him. And then all of a sudden, these women and, like, all the people start singing. And you realize that it's almost like they're praying to him and they're praising him. Yeah, and you're like, wow, like, this guy, to them, is a god. Like, these people, like, they suffer, like, they need help. He's the one who helps them. And, like, they're always looking forward to him coming. And I was like, that's actually really, really cool.
Yeah.
It's just, like, adding these little layers of stuff, because if you think about it, that's probably how superheroes would be received in some ways. Like, if you had this guy who literally had control of all the waters, and he was coming and helping you out, like, that, I don't know, I just thought that was really neat. And so that was one thing that this did add about Aquaman that I was just, like, remembering as we were talking about it. But other than that, you don't really get a lot of extra stuff.
Yeah.
You do get a little bit of his compassion later on, whenever, like, I think him and the Flash are talking to each other, and, or, who was he talking? I think it was the Flash. When he's, like, looking at Cyborg, and he's like, man, that guy lost his dad, and he's, like, having to, like, go separate the most powerful entities in the world, like, that sucks. And the Flash is like, I thought you didn't care. And he's like, I never said that. Right? He's like, I never said I didn't care. I just acted like it, probably. So you see, like, this guy, he's kind of playing a lot tougher, because that's just who he is.
Yeah.
But, yeah. And so, really, you don't have a lot more about him. Do you have anything else you want to say about Aquaman?
I was just going to say, I almost like the scene, I forgot the other girl that's from Atlantis.
Mara, I think?
Yeah.
Like that.
I almost liked her fighting scene better. Like, she gets to really show off her part. That part was cool.
Yeah.
So.
And that could be just that, you know, at this point in the story, like, this takes place before the Aquaman movie.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, he doesn't, like, have as much control over stuff. Like, so at the point in this movie, you know, like, he's still rejecting all the people from Atlantis and all this stuff. Whereas in the Aquaman movie, he comes to terms with them, he meets them, and he, I think, by the end, becomes their king.
So Aquaman was afterwards?
Yes, Aquaman
I had
was after
forgotten
this.
about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Aquaman came out after this.
Okay.
But not long after this, I
Right.
don't think. But, yeah, so this one was set before that. And so, over that movie, him and that girl get together, and, like, so all this stuff happens in development. But right here, he's still at odds with them. And things are, like,
that
still
makes sense,
weird.
because I was thinking about it, I was like, seeing that movie, it seemed like he got a new student, had the trident and all that.
Yeah.
But now it reverted, so that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. All right, cool. So next up, we have Cyborg. What did you think about Cyborg, Brienne?
He was cool. He doesn't, like, is he in any other movies other than this one?
No,
Okay,
he's introduced
so I was
in
about
this
to say,
one.
I don't remember him from
Well,
any
technically
movies,
he's in Batman vs. Superman.
In a
You
very
see
quick
video
scene.
of, like,
Okay.
it's kind of like a teaser for this movie.
It was really dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like Batman vs. Superman, but I thought it was dumb how they introduced the character. But
Yeah.
once again, I think it's
That's
because
true.
Warner Brothers was interviewing. Like, they're like,
Right.
you need to introduce all of them in this movie.
Yeah,
and
give
Zack
people
Snyder's like,
yeah.
okay, well, I guess I'll put them in an email.
It was like,
Yeah.
we need to get them excited for the next movie.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they kind of just threw in a scene.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was about to say, I don't remember him from anything.
Yeah.
I know the one scene at the very end, whenever he, like, reverses the little tape recorder thing and he gets to, like, hear his dad again, that was really sweet. Because the entire time you see him being, like, really tough and almost kind of, like, wanting to push his dad away, even though his dad was the person who, like, saved his life. And, you know, you see at the very beginning, you know, his dad doesn't come to, like, his football games when his mom's there.
Yeah.
His mom dies in the crash, so, you know, you see him losing these relationships that are important to him. And then at the very end, you kind of see kind of it revert back, and he's like, okay, well, I really do appreciate that. So that was sweet.
Yeah.
I like that. He was a cool character. Wasn't my favorite, but, you know.
Yeah, it's cool. What did you think about him?
I like Cyborg. I think, I can't really remember everything that it did show about him in the original,
It showed, like,
which is
nothing.
probably not much,
Yeah.
but this one, they showed so much about him, like, seeing a lot of his powers was really cool, and what he could actually do, and explaining what he can do. The only gripe I have about him is, like, the CGI, and I don't know how you fix that for him, but it looks a little off on his face. But
yeah, it does.
I mean, that's a hard thing to do with someone made. Like,
and it's also probably just budgetary. Like,
Yeah.
you know, they gave them a certain amount of money and said, hey, finish this movie.
True.
And so, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a matter of, like, I don't know
yeah.
how that all works out.
But other than that, I think he was really cool. Obviously, very critical to the plot.
Yeah.
I think you had mentioned in the last one he was supposed to be kind of the heart of it, and I felt that. You know, he seemed much more critical to it.
I was wondering how that would pull off, like, how that would work out, because whenever you watch the last movie, Cyborg, he's an afterthought.
Yeah.
Like, you know nothing about him, and watching it, I was like,
Yeah.
this guy is barely even in the movie. He just shows up every now and then. He's like, I don't want to do this. And like, and then, like, he's powerful, but you don't know his powers. You don't know his story. You know nothing.
They kind of just stuck him in there so they could call it Justice League movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and his dad, I think his dad's in one scene in the whole.
Yeah,
other
that
movie.
added a lot to it.
That adds a
the
lot of depth,
story
yeah.
of how he became who he was. I mean, I didn't know that either. You know, so
And so that was really cool, because I've got to say, I get what Zack Snyder meant here. Like, when it says he's the heart of the movie, I still think Superman kind of is the heart of the movie, just because it all revolves ultimately around him. Like, he is, like, the hope that everybody's trying to achieve. But Cyborg's really the one that holds the team together. Like, if it wasn't for Cyborg, like, if you just think about, like, a lot of the action scenes, he's the one who he's the one who pretty much helps them out of every single situation. Because he just keeps coming in and, like, saving everybody. Like, he comes in and he, like, takes control of, like, that bat, like, the crawler thing, you know, like the Nightcrawler. And then he comes in at the end and he's the one who's splitting up all these mother boxes. And
Superman does help, but, you know, he's the one that's kind of starts the split.
Yeah, and you realize how powerful this guy is. Like, you enter into his mind and you can see, like, there's one point he literally, gives this woman, like, $100,000 or something like that?
Yeah, that
Like,
was
at the ATM.
We thought that was a little crazy. We were like,
it's
that's
pretty
not how
messed
money
up.
works, but...
Well, I mean, basically he kind of stole.
Yeah.
I think. I don't think he created it. I think he was like, boom, I added this there.
I mean, he
So
took
he's
it from
kinda-
someone that's a villain.
Yeah, it was from Lex Luthor's account.
He could have had a bigger yacht if he hadn't taken that money away.
That was one thing I did actually. That was my one gripe about it, is that they kept being like, "Oh, he's got a good heart," but he was like doing things that are like blatantly wrong. So like earlier on in one of the flashbacks, it was talking about how he was like a star athlete and really brilliant, and they said, "Yeah, that's really cool, but you can't just hack into a teacher's system and change your friend's grade." And the mom's like, she's like, "Well, her house, like, they lost their house. You can't expect her to have good grades." And I was like, okay, I get that, but you still can't do that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
still wrong to do. So they were like trying to, I don't know. It was like he's a good-hearted person, but he's still doing wrong things.
Yeah.
And so part of me is like, okay, that's cool because it's almost more realistic,
Mm-hmm.
right? He's not just like this perfect kid, but they never really addressed the fact that, no, that's still wrong.
Yeah.
And then he like goes on, once he's a superhero, he still does the same thing. He's like, this woman doesn't have any money. I'm going to give you $100,000. You're like, okay, but where did you get that? That's the issue there.
Yeah.
You're not just making that, like, you have control over technology. You can't just create money.
Maybe
You know,
Snyder was trying to show that he's transitioning from being that kind of hero to this new kind of hero, but
Yeah.
he never explicitly
Yeah.
like made that an intentional thing
Yeah.
that he's going through. So I don't know.
Yeah, but that being said, I'm not trying to gripe against Cyborg. He's a million times better in this movie.
Yeah.
Like a million, billion times better.
We needed
actually.
the stuff with his dad and all that
Yeah.
stuff, how he became who he was, how they, and a lot of stuff he had explained how they knew where the mother boxes were and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yep. And then we move on to The Flash. What do you think about The Flash, Brienne?
I really liked him. I didn't know much about Flash before, like, we watched this movie, but, like, the very ending scene that was y'all's favorite, like, that was really cool. I didn't realize... I had heard of Flash before, but I didn't know what his powers were.
Mm-hmm.
And then, once we watched this movie, I was like, wow, he has...
He's
a lot of
he's a
powers.
powerful
It's
dude.
more
Like,
than
he
just
just-
super fast.
Yeah. See, I was like, okay, Flash, yeah, he probably can, like, run super fast, something
Mhm.
like that, but I was like, reversing time. Like, if it wasn't for him, the movie would have just, like, cut off. And, like,
As
it
would
would have
the
been
world.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that was pretty cool. And then, I know I had mentioned to David whenever we had, like, taken a break, that the Flash reminded me...
We were on a break. Sorry. So,
He reminded me of Spider-Man and Ant-Man put together. Like, his personality. Because he has, like, almost, like, the innocence of Spider-Man. And especially because you can see how Batman's kind of, like, taking him under his wing.
Mm-hmm.
So it was almost like the Spider-Man-Iron Man relationship. And he had, like, the innocence of that. But then, like, the comedy of Ant-Man at the same time. So I thought that was kind of interesting how they did that. Because you can kind of see some parallels between the two. But... I thought he was a cool character. He was one of my favorites from the movie, so.
Yeah, what about you, Jonathan?
From what she said, there's just kind of a tangent I was thinking about Spider-Man. One thing I think, better about this, than, like, in the Spider-Man movies, it kind of is like Iron Man is taking him in because they want Iron Man in the movie. And he's kind of mentoring him and making him Spider-Man. You know, it felt like a little bit like he helped him become that. In this one, he's already the Flash.
That's true.
But Batman's inviting him in and helping him be part of a team.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool that he was already who he was, and he already kind of had a grasp on his powers. Like, he already knew he could go back in time, obviously, because that's what was his intention. So it was just cool to see that. I think, like I've told you before, I like the Barry Allen in the show better. This one, I think it was better in this one. They took out a lot of his jokes, so it wasn't as overwhelming. But I remember seeing Justice League, I'm thinking, this guy's kind of annoying. And we do have the first scene that shows up. He is, like that a lot in that scene where he's, like, going to get a job and save.
Yes.
But I did like that scene because we get to see
Iris, yeah.
which was cool. They don't really go too much into that.
Yeah.
I don't think... Did they say her name?
They never say her name.
So I didn't even realize until after.
That is who it's supposed to be.
But that is pretty cool, like, kind of a little bit of a setup
World
for him.
building and stuff, yeah.
But I think he's a cool character, and I think he did a decent job. I just don't like him as much as the show version, but I don't think he's a bad Flash.
Yeah, this is another one where, I gotta be honest, he also was so much better. This is what I'm saying when I say Zack Snyder, he understands these characters better.
Yeah.
And he knows how to elevate them to where they're basically gods. Because in the original movie, the Flash is really fast, right? But every time he does something fast, it's undercut, right? He's like running, and then like Superman looks at him. And that same scene happens here, but it doesn't understate how fast the Flash is because he has all these other moments where he's super powerful. And you realize that in that moment, the Flash isn't going as fast as he possibly can because later on, he literally turns back time. In the other movie, like, he's like going as fast as he can, Superman looks at him. Right? And then later on, he's like moving the truck, and then Superman's like moving this building. So every time the Flash does something important in the other one, Superman does something better.
Yeah.
And so the Flash really seems unimportant. And then, like you pointed out, he was kind of annoying in the other one. And the other one was like, oh my gosh. Every time he showed up on the screen, I was like, dude. Like, he was always making jokes, and he has this stupid brunch joke, which I hate it every time, because he's like, what is brunch? And, like, he just, like, goes on this thing, and you can tell it feels like they took a joke out of a Marvel movie and just threw it in there. And it just feels so out of place.
I think that's the thing, like, his personality's fun and, like, enjoyable, but when it's in the wrong situation, it's like jarring.
Yes.
So
whereas in this one, it felt natural. Like it was like, okay,
they took
in
it
the
out
right
where it's unnecessary and kept it where it was okay.
Yeah, because he even does make some jokes in this one that aren't in the original one. Like there's one where they're talking and they're saying like, Flash, with what power are you gonna do this stuff? And he's like, with the power of love. Like, but it's kind of like it's like a snarky, sarcastic thing, and then he's like, oh, with the power, and then he like says like the scientific response, and it worked in the situation because it was almost like this team banter going back and forth.
Right.
And you also see him like getting more confident and stuff, and you get a lot of moments where he's really serious, and you actually get to appreciate him as a character. Whereas literally in the other movie, he's only comic relief. Yeah. He's there so that he can be one up by Superman, so he can fall on Wonder Woman's chest, so he can do all this stuff. Whereas in this one, like, you know, he like is like speeding around to give that charge, and then like he like trips because he gets hit by a cannon. Well, they're like, "Are you all right?" He's like, "Yeah, I just got the breath knocked out of me," and then it like pans down, and he's like got like a gaping hole like in his ribs, and he's just like heal, because he heals really fast.
Yeah, but that's cool too because that's not the original, and so if you don't know this character, you don't know that he can heal.
Yeah, he just seems like this guy who's really fast, and he's a comic relief. Whereas in this one, he is the comic relief still, but he's not always that. Like, there's a lot of depth. Like, the scene between him and his dad in the jail cell, jail cell, it's expanded upon, right? They actually spend a lot more time there. Whereas in the other one, it's only, like, probably half as long. And so you get, like, a hint of emotion, but you also don't know what the heck's going on because they don't take the time to explain it. Right? And so this one, you really get that, like, build up, and you get to see him with Iris, and you get to see, okay, this is who he is. He's kind of a quirky guy, but he's almost quirky because he's running from something. Right? Because that's, like, the impression I got. I don't know about y'all. But it seemed like he was, like, quirky because he was just like, it was almost like he's the, like, the staple person who makes jokes because he doesn't want to, like, be honest about who he is.
Yeah,
and so,
I see that.
Yeah, that's what I kind of got the impression of. Like, he's, like, going from job to job being like, oh, yeah, like, he's trying to hide, like, certain emotions inside. But then it was really cool just seeing him grow into this character. And really, if you see the Justice League version of this, the Flash feels even more like Spider-Man. And Batman feels a lot more like Iron Man. Because there's literally this one scene, you know the scene whenever they go to, like, retrieve those, they go to retrieve the captives that Steppenwolf has there. And they have that, like, that whole fight where, like, Cyborg's dad's in there and everything. Well, in that scene, in the Justice League one, the Flash is like, guys, I don't know what to do because, like, I know that y'all do this whole superhero thing, but, like, all I do is just, like, push people and run away. And he's just, like freaking out, and it's, like, really stupid.
Well, that's another thing. Sorry. I feel like that also undermines this idea that he's been doing what he's doing for a while. Yeah. Like, he's developed into the Flash. That makes him sound like he doesn't really know his powers yet, and he's...
Well, it seems like he's just, like, doing it against bullies and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, and then what Batman says to him in that movie, he's just like, just one person. Just get one person, and that's it. Yeah. And basically, he's just saying, like, go get one person, you'll realize how easy it was for you, and then go do more. And that's what happens, but it feels like Batman's just, like, being his, like, tutor the whole time, whereas really, the only thing that sets them apart is that Flash wasn't part of the team. Like, once the Flash shows up, he just fits right in with them. Yeah. And he's like, okay, like, he's learning, and you can tell that he's not as experienced, but he still is going around, like, he's doing very heroic stuff. He's, like, he just walks in, he's, like, surveying the room, he's helping people out, he's going up and down the stairs saying, follow me. So he goes in there, and he's, like, helping Wonder Woman out, doing all this stuff. You can tell he's experienced with it.
And it makes more sense. I don't know if this line was in the previous version, but where he's talking about, like, I forget what he's saying, but he's talking to Bruce, and he mentions, like, a monkey or something. That would imply that he has fought that villain before.
Yeah, Gorilla Sign Language.
If he's new, he wouldn't have fought him.
Exactly.
So, you know, it wouldn't make
that line
sense.
was in the original one, but it didn't make sense in the original
exactly. So it doesn't make sense context-wise.
Yeah, because I was wondering about that. In the original one, he, like, says it, and I'm like, but you say you're not experienced. Why would you know Gorilla Sign Language? Because there's Gorilla Grodd, who is one of his villains. But then there's another place in this one that's not in the original where he's actually describing. He's like, if I go too fast, they're laying the groundwork for the fact that he can time travel. Right. He's like, if I go too fast and I reach the speed of light, time gets kind of weird. Yeah. And then they just move on. And in that part, I was like, oh. Like, that part clicked for me. I was like, oh, this guy's more experienced than I thought. Yes. So it shows you these two guys are vastly different.
And that was also very good subtle foreshadowing, because I didn't hear that and think, oh, he's going to use it later. Yeah. I just was like, oh, they're giving context to his powers.
If anything, I thought it was setting up for the future movies. Yeah. And that being said, there is a Flash movie they're filming, and they're getting, like, a buttload of people to be in this movie. Like, they've got Michael Keaton, like, from the original Batman movies. They've got, like, a bunch of people coming in for this. It's going to be awesome. And
Queen was also
originally,
in Spider-Man.
oh, that's true. Yeah.
The Vulture.
But originally, I wasn't looking forward to that movie. Well, I was looking forward to it because of who was going to be in it. But I really the Flash being in it was kind of like, okay. But now, having seen this one, I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I'm actually wanting to see this guy in this movie.
Right.
And so it actually makes me look forward to the movie for him.
For sure.
Not just for the supporting characters.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool. But now we've got to move to the defining trinity, right? Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman. Yeah. And since we're going to start with you, Brienne, we got to talk about Wonder Woman. Because as you can see, we've got this... she's wearing a Wonder Woman jacket. And then also behind her... She is drawn as Wonder Woman. Boom!
Yes.
So,
Awesome.
Please, tell us, what do you think about Wonder Woman?
Yeah, I like Wonder Woman. The last movie that we watched was Wonder Woman 1984. So, yeah, it's not good. It's not good. Which, this movie takes place before that one, right? This movie is, like, in between.
Technically, that movie's supposed to take place before because it takes place in 1984.
Oh.
But Zack Snyder this would not have been canon at the time. Right,
Okay.
so technically, this movie was not written at the time Zack Snyder filmed this.
Okay.
Right? That movie was written. That movie was written after the original Justice League.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's when we just chalk it up to it's another multiverse.
Yeah.
It's
another universe.
Yeah.
Because I know going into this movie, I was like, I really hope that Wonder Woman is not depicted in the same way that she was in 1984 because I just wasn't a fan. I love the first Wonder Woman movie.
Yeah.
Like, I went and saw that movie 2 times in theaters.
That was the one movie, superhero movie she had seen.
Yeah, that's the only superhero movie I'd seen before I went
Nice.
on this entire, marathon of all of them.
Yep.
And I went and saw it twice in theaters, so that should tell you that I really liked it.
Yep.
So I was nervous whenever we came into this one, and I was like, I really hope that Wonder Woman, because she's a cool character.
Yep.
I was like, and she has, like, good powers. I think her character is cool. And I was hoping that she wasn't going to be like how she was in 1984, and she wasn't. She was a lot more like how she was in the first movie, and I was a big fan of that. So
I think she was more brutal.
Because the order was the first one, then this, and then 1984. So that's why.
Yeah. I like it because she's a strong woman character, but they don't try and, like, drive home the, like, feminist stuff.
Yeah.
Except for one line.
Really
what was that one line?
Oh, yeah.
I belong to no one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I belong to no one.
Yeah. But other than that, that's what I think I really like about her characters, because she's a woman character, but they don't try and, like, her only goal is to be, like, pro-women, feminist, which isn't bad. I just don't like it whenever they do that to girl characters.
Yeah.
I just am not a fan of that, and so I like that she can be a strong female character without having to be, like, this empowering individual figure.
Well, it's almost contradictory whenever they do
superhero.
that. Like, it's almost contradictory whenever they do that. Because it's like, they're saying, I'm an independent woman, but they feel the need to be defending that every time. Whereas, like, if you were truly an independent woman, you would just live.
Yeah, you just go with it.
Yeah, exactly.
And just lead by example.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Jonathan, what about you?
I mean, I agree. I haven't seen 1984, so my vision has not been tarnished by anything. So, yeah, I think her standalone movie, was a great standalone movie. Like, you could watch that movie, know nothing else about superheroes, and just enjoy it. And because of that, I think just watching that, it's fun to see her in this. But I think it's still cool here. We see, good display of all her abilities and powers. We did talk about, she kind of uses the same, like,
she did
attack, over
it's
and
like
over.
her only thing.
I was kind of thinking, like, in, like, Injustice or something, whoever's playing her must be using the same ability every time.
I was thinking I'm trying to think how many times. She uses it at, like, the museum thing. She uses it against Superman and it doesn't work.
And then
she uses it a few times, I think, in the final fight.
Yeah, she does.
So it's like probably 4 or 5 times in the movie, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you need to get some other moves.
Yeah.
I think like in her beginning scene with the robbery, that was a good display of all her abilities. Like, she uses the lasso, her bracelets to block all the bullets, and
that was really good.
So.
Well, this goes back to how I was saying Zack Snyder, once again, he elevates these characters, because that scene by itself, in the original movie, it's just like an introduction to her character, and it feels dumb and out of place. And you're like, okay, this was weird. Whereas in this movie, like, it's like expanded to where it's actually a few minutes long, and you see like this building up and everything, to where in the original one, like, whenever the guy turns to shoot the kids, it seems kind of random, because like he's also waiting for the bomb to go off, and you're like, what? The bomb's about to go off. Why are you going to shoot the kids? Whereas in this one, she throws the bomb into the air, and first off, the bomb is way bigger. Like this bomb was way bigger than the one in the original movie. And then she comes back down, and then he realizes, oh man, that plan didn't work. Now I'm going to kill... And then there's more tension. You're like, oh, now it makes sense.
Yeah.
Then she saves the kids. And you see this lady, she's brutal. Like, she throws one guy against the wall, and his head just, like, bursts against the wall. It's like, boom! You're like, oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Like, this is really intense, but once again, it's elevating the characters to where, like, when she comes in, you realize this is not just a regular woman.
Yeah.
And she may have not even intentionally tried to kill the guy. You know, she's defending, so by her power, that's what it, you know.
And I don't have a problem with it. I mean, it's like war.
Yeah, she's not intentionally murdering people. You know, she's trying to help people from being murdered.
Exactly.
So,
and then there's one part in there where we were laughing about it because this girl at the very end, like, of that whole scene, she's like, "Can I be like you?" And then Wonder Woman's kind of like, "Yeah," and I'm like, No, you can't. Like,
it's literally
Wonder Woman,
impossible.
Yeah, she's the daughter of Zeus.
Yeah.
And so maybe, like, if you're saying, can you be influential or something? I mean, yeah, sure, but no, you can physically not be like Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That was kind of funny because I was like, I get what you're going for, but no, you can't. Sorry. But that'd be kind of messed up to say to her, like, can I be like you? No.
We know the message they're trying to get across, but it just was kind of silly.
Yeah, but Wonder Woman, I mean, she's pretty much good in... I was going to say everything. I think she's fine in 1984. Just the movie itself is bad, and so it lowers her down.
Yeah.
Because Gal Gadot, she does a good job as the character. She's actually done very good at, like, just embodying the role.
Yes.
And so I think she does really good in this. She doesn't get elevated as much, other than that opening scene, because you really get to see how powerful she is, and there's a lot more weight to it.
And you realize how fast she is, too. I didn't realize that she was so fast.
Yeah, she's really, really quick. But then there is one other thing, really. You don't get a lot of stuff added for her, but you do get one thing is, you know, that whole, like, arrow, like, the flaming arrow that shot over stuff. Well, she gets to, like, go under the, like, underground,
cool.
and she gets to, like, she's the one who learns the history of all the stuff with Darkseid and everything, which in the original movie you don't get any of that. Darkseid's not even in the original movie. Basically, Wonder Woman just shows up and she's like exposition. Exposition. I was losing the word. Exposition dumping. She's just like dumping it out, and she's being like, "Oh yeah, there was like this war and like all this stuff happened." And Darkseid's not even in it. It's Steppenwolf who shows up, and he's having this battle. Darkseid isn't even mentioned. And then it just leaves, and you're like, okay, what was going on there? And then also, how did she know this stuff? Well, in this one, you get the context. And that's what I'm saying. Once again, these scenes were necessary, right? It made for a really long movie, but how else are you going to, like, it makes for a more cohesive movie.
Well, like we talked about in the beginning, they had taken their time, just waited, be patient, come out with the movies for each individual character. This would be way easier.
Yeah.
But...
yeah, it made sense. But, yeah. I also liked that some of that was in Greek because I could read some of it. I was like, nice. But there's Wonder Woman. And then now we move to Batman, which I did draw a Batman thing of Jonathan, and that'll be in the thumbnail of this video, but we didn't have a place for a canvas here. And so, yeah, sorry, bud.
That's cool.
Yeah. But what'd y'all think about Batman? Let's start with you, Brienne.
Yeah. Not to compare all these characters to, like, Marvel characters, but I just know earlier you compared Batman to Iron Man, which there are some parallels. If you think about Iron Man, both of them are just kind of people that have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so they've just kind of been elevated, and now they're, like, these superhero figures, right? I personally am not a big fan of Iron Man. I think he causes a lot of trouble, and he's just like this guy who has a lot of money and like just doesn't do a lot of good with it. There's good times. There's times where he redeems himself, but for the most part, I'm not the biggest fan of him. However, Batman, I think, does the role a lot better.
Yeah.
Like, he has a lot of money, and he is like this rich guy. But I think he just does a better job being a superhero. I think he doesn't take advantage of certain things that he could do. So I just think he does a better job at it. So,
yeah. Batman, he's cool. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Batman, like, if you watch the Dark Knight trilogy ever, one cool thing they do with him also that sets him apart from Iron Man is that he does, like, the playboy rich guy as, like, a way to distract, like, people won't know who he is. Right. So he doesn't do it just because he wants to. Iron Man, it seems like he kind of, like, enjoys it and he wants to do it.
Yeah.
And it's in Batman, he kind of uses it to hide his identity.
Yeah.
Which I think is a cool way to do that. So you definitely see that more in him. You know, like, people say, oh, he's this dark, brooding guy, but I think in this one we see, like, he's not, like, always super upset about his parents and stuff. He's learned from it and he's moved. Like, there's the end scene when he's talking
Martian Manhunter.
Yeah, Martian Manhunter, and that really showed that like he's used that to help him become who he is, and I think that kind of sets him apart from Iron Man.
Yeah.
But I really like him. I grew up on Batman. I did watch Superman when I was younger, but I think just watching him my whole life, so much Batman stuff. He's been my favorite character, and I like seeing all the different portrayals of him.
Yeah.
And in the original Justice League, I feel like we didn't get to see as much of his like toolkit, I guess. In this one, we got to see a lot more cool scenes with him.
Get to see, like, whenever he says the whole, like, what's your power, I'm rich thing.
Yeah.
Like, in the other one, it's a funny line. In this one, you're like, no, that's, like, legit his superpower. Like, he's filthy rich.
Yeah.
Like, you get to see that in action for sure.
Right.
Yeah, and, Batman, I like him in this one. I did not like him at all. Yeah, I keep saying that about this. I didn't like any of the characters in the original one. In the original one, I literally didn't care for the characters because you could tell that the people making the movie did not care about the characters. Like, they were using them as jokes, and Batman probably suffered the most from that, specifically because Batman usually is the dark, brooding guy.
Yeah.
So whenever you compare Batman versus Superman to Justice League, that probably serves the best to highlight what went wrong with the movie. Because in Batman versus Superman, Batman is probably the darkest we've ever seen him. Like, he's killing people left and right. He is turning against Superman and wants to kill him too. Right. Like, he is furious. He's bitter. He's got all this anger built up. And basically, at the end of that movie, Superman teaches them there is hope. And all because somebody has power doesn't mean that they can't be trusted. And so Superman, gives him this light. But then whenever you go to Justice League, it's like he's a totally different person. He's just cracking jokes all the time. He's like, oh yeah, my leg, and like doing all this stuff. You're like, this is way different. Yeah. Whereas this guy in this movie, he is different than a Batman vs. Superman. He is brighter, but he hasn't totally changed, right? It's not like a drastic thing where he's making jokes every now and then. Like, I think the only joke he really makes in this is at the point, it's the same, it was in the other movie too, but whenever Cyborg turns to him and he's like, I didn't think you were real, and then he just says, I'm real when it's useful. But I think that's the closest.
I didn't think that was even really a joke. It's just kind of like, I mean, that's true. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things but to me, I guess that's the closest he got to it.
Yeah. But he's not like what they had with the Flash and the first. Like, he's not doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Whereas in the original one, it's like he's making jokes left and right. Like, he meets up with Aquaman. He's like, so I hear you can talk to fish. And like, just all this stuff where it's unneeded. And you're just like, what's going on here? Like, it just... I don't know, and like there's this weird scene where, whenever Superman comes back to life and everything, he's like holding Batman, he's like, tell me, do you bleed? Which is a callback to Batman versus Superman. Sorry, my throat just got really scratchy, it was weird. But it's a callback to that, and then when he like throws Batman down, and then Batman's like, oh, yep, I'm bleeding, and you're like, oh my gosh. And then also, Superman literally backhands Batman in the original one. In Justice League, literally just backhand. I'm like, wow. Like, if that's literally what Joss Whedon did to those characters.
It's undermining Batman specifically a lot, because he's already, like, one of those characters you're like, how does he contribute to it? And this one we really get to see that.
Yeah, because Batman, he's already, like, the underdog here, right? He doesn't have any superpowers. And so whenever you have the most powerful guy on the team backhanding him, that's basically being like, yeah, you're not needed. Yeah. Whereas in this movie, you actually see why Batman is needed, even though he doesn't have powers. I will say that of all of them, we talked about this when we were taking our break in between the part 4 and part 5. But of all the characters, he's probably the one that feels least godlike, right? Yeah, because all the other ones feel like they literally feel like Greek gods in the modern era.
And I think that's why some people like Batman more, because he seems more grounded. Like, he's someone they can relate a little bit more to.
Yeah. But and that's the whole point, right? Because not all that, like, he does, for being a human, he does seem to be far beyond. Like, you're like, wow, this guy is really
None of us will
impressive.
ever have as much money or like be as strong as he is, but he's still human.
Yeah, he's basically the demigod of them, right? The others are gods. He's a demigod. And then, at long last, we reach Superman. Boom. The boy in blue, but in this movie, the boy in black. Brienne, what do you think about Superman?
Yeah. I don't know if it's because I've been watching a lot of, like, Superman lately, and maybe I'm just partial to him, but he was, like, one of my favorite characters. I think it would be him and then Flash in this movie, but now that I think about it, he wasn't even in, like, majority of the movie. Like, for the over half of it, he wasn't even in the movie.
Yeah,
it wasn't until the end.
Yeah, he wasn't even in it.
He wasn't in it at all.
Yep.
because whenever we took our break, they were just like, they were sitting around the table talking like, oh my gosh, like there's a possibility that we could bring him back to life. So they were just coming up with that idea.
Yeah.
But I think he's a really cool character. And I think at the end, whenever he comes back and he, sees all, like, Wonder Woman, Batman, all of them for the first time, and he doesn't recognize who he is. And he's, destroying everything around him. He's trying to defeat all of them and everything like that. You see how his powers could really be used for evil. And how, in real life, whenever he recognizes who he is, that he doesn't use it for that he's able to conceal those powers and control them. And I think that's really cool that you get to see that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I think it's a really good job done. Like, since we're relating these to Marvel movies a lot, like one thing in the last one, Endgame, is Captain Marvel. She's kind of like the most powerful in that universe right now, I would say. And they kind of just do this thing where, she's on another planet doing other stuff, and she's going to show up last minute as kind of a way to explain that why she's not there the whole time, because if she was there the whole time, it would be, like, way easier for them.
Yeah.
Right.
So I felt like in this one, it makes logical sense why Superman doesn't show up until later in the game. He's dead, and then once he's back, he's confused, and then he takes some time to go find Alfred, and it just takes a while. But it makes sense, and they explain all the stuff going on with him. So I really like that.
Yeah.
Because one my gripe about Superman is always that he's too powerful, which is cool. I like that he has all his abilities, and it's fun to watch. But I think they do a good job of showing his weaknesses and that he does have flaws, and he does lose sometimes.
Yeah.
So, but I thought they did a really good job of explaining that, and it's just cool to see him show up. So.
And they do tease it in here. Like, they tease one of the things that makes Superman so intriguing to me in this movie, because they have the whole thing, which we'll talk about the nightmare sequences in a second, but they have this idea of an evil Superman. And to me, that's what makes Superman so intriguing, because whenever you see the power that what he could use his power for, that's what makes him impressive. Because people talk about him being overpowered, and they're like, oh, Superman's not interesting. He's interesting because he has the power to do literally anything. Like, if he wanted, he could become the dictator of the entire universe.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. And that's what's cool, because he's this good guy. He was raised in Kansas by these humble farmers, and he was taught to use his powers for good. Yeah. And I love that about Superman, because, I just like the values, right? That's why I like DC more than Marvel, even if Marvel's movies are usually deemed better. DC, to me, has better characters because they're deeper, right? Like, Superman, he just stands... that's why Captain America is my favorite hero in Marvel, because he's got these values he stands for.
Yeah.
But Superman, I absolutely love that, and I like that they show that in this. But one thing they also did really good in this one that they didn't do in the other one is that they show that he isn't too overpowered, right? You do see, it's weird that I say that, because I would say he's more powerful in this movie than he was in Justice League. But in Justice League, he comes across as more overpowered, because at the resolution of that movie, he just shows up and just basically defeats Steppenwolf. Yeah. And then, the Flash is running, and then he's, carrying this building. He's doing all the stuff, and he basically solves all their problems. The movie ends.
So it's kind of almost like Captain Marvel type thing.
Yeah.
And it's just shows up, and if she was there, why?
It's like a Deus Ex Machina, he shows up, boom, okay.
Yeah.
Whereas Superman shows up in this movie, and even though he's beaten the crap out of Steppenwolf, they still lose, right? They still lose, the mother boxes unite, and it's the Flash who saves the day, right? So in the other one, Superman shows up, and he even steals the thunder from Flash. Whereas even when Superman shows up, and he's winning, they still lose. And it's the Flash who saves. And I was like, okay, that's cool, because it shows, yes, Superman has a whole lot of power, and he's more powerful than all of them. He could take on all of them at the same time and win.
Yeah.
But they need each other to survive.
Right.
And that was cool to me, because in the other one, basically, Superman was the only one they really needed. So once they brought him back to life, they could have all just left, and it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Whereas in this one, it's no, they genuinely needed one another. Superman showed up, he's helping them out, and then the Flash is the one who brings them all back, and then guess what? It's Aquaman who stabs him, and then Cyborg pushes him or something, and then Wonder Woman chops Steppenwolf's head off and stuff.
Yeah.
And so they're all working together here. Batman's the only one who's just but he has to, right? Yeah. He's really the guy behind the scenes. But
he was also kind of fighting off the.
He was doing the outside stuff.
Outside.
Yeah. He was working with the technology. Yeah. Right. So they used him very well here. Whereas I think in the other one he kind of just is standing there, and he makes a joke there too. Yeah. Whenever Superman shows back up, he smiles, And then Superman's like, "Oh, you happy to see me?" And he's like, "I'm not happy to see you." And you're like, "Oh my gosh, like it's just so dumb." But Superman, how he shows up in this, it's really cool. The black suit thing, first off, I think it looks really good. Like, their design on that one's actually different than this shirt, because, like, it's actually white on here and then black on the inside, which I think actually looks really, really good. I thought it was a cool suit. But they didn't really do anything with it. It was kind of just a wardrobe choice.
Yeah.
Whereas in the comics, Superman's dead. And this is really one of the things that's still a continuing issue for me in this movie. I don't like how they handled his resurrection, really.
Yeah.
Because I was hoping it would be something different. Because it seemed like it was set up differently. But in the comics, whenever Superman comes back to life, it's because really he didn't fully die. It was like he went into like this like Kryptonian coma. Because he was so close to death that his basically body shut down so he could regenerate.
Yeah.
And when he shows back up, he's wearing this black suit because it's like a regeneration suit that's like giving him strength and helping him absorb the sunlight's powers quicker because it's black, you know, so he gets his power from the sun. Whereas, and I guess that could be why he used the black one this time, but really it seems like it's just
they don't
like
explain it. It's
yeah,
not said or anything like
it's more just to appease the fans because I think originally it was a blue and red suit and everything like that, but I think that they just colored it in post-production just to appease the fans.
Yeah.
Because, obviously, they just needed to give him a mullet. That's all I needed. They just needed to give him a mullet. But, yeah, that goes back to the one thing I did want to talk about with Superman. The resurrection thing still doesn't make sense to me. Because in Batman vs. Superman, they did that thing where literally the final shot of the movie is, you know, it's a shot of his coffin and then, like, the dirt just starts to raise a little bit. And that's something that we saw it in Man of Steel whenever he's about to fly for the first time, like, you know, the dust, like the snow starts to raise around him. And then in this movie, whenever he shows back up in a scene very similar to Man of Steel, you know, he like comes out of the fortress or like the ship and he's like, oh, it's like a really cool scene. But whenever he like stands up in this part, like also once again, the dirt levitates. So that just still confused me because in Batman vs. Superman, it implies part of him's still alive.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, the dirt's lifting up. And so, I was hoping that in this movie they do it differently. In the trailers, I kind of got the idea they weren't going to because they showed them, like, lowering him into the goop and stuff. But I was it still feels weird to me that he's kind of like a Frankenstein's monster. Like, I don't know, like, they kind of just resurrected him. Whereas, it seems more consistent. It's probably just because I really like viewing Superman as, like, a Jesus metaphor. And so, I didn't like that somebody had to bring him back to life. I would have liked it if he just came back to life himself. Right. But other than that, still really good. But like y'all pointed out, he wasn't in the movie that much.
Yeah.
But my favorite parts of the movie, because Henry Cavill, awesome. Yeah. I like him. I hope that he gets to do more Superman.
But like you pointed out, I think it was very important addition to this to show, like, it's okay if Superman's really powerful, but when he has like the abilities that everyone else has, or better, and you're not seeing what each person brings to the team. You're kind of like, why even have those other guys?
Yeah.
If it just if
he's as fast as the Flash, then why do you need the Flash?
Yeah. So Flash can do some stuff that he can. They all bring something to the team that not just Superman does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then so that's our talk about the Justice League, right? The actual members of the league. And I just want to say once again, I like how Snyder lifts the characters. Like he respects the characters.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing to me. Joss Whedon and his stuff, he didn't respect them. He made them jokes. That's what kills me. I don't care. Like, Marvel characters, they make them jokes all the time because their movies are more comedic.
Yeah.
And so whenever those characters are made joking, it's because they want to be. So it doesn't come across as rude. Whereas this movie, like, when you go watch Justice League, the original one, it has this weight to it, so it feels like it should be serious. And so whenever you make these characters jokes, it comes across insulting. It's almost like you're like laughing at the characters. It's like, oh no, that's not cool. So I really like how Zack Snyder, it really feels like a modern day mythology. And I'm a big mythology fan. Like I love Greek mythology, Roman mythology. Still trying to get into Norse mythology. It's a little bit, it's more complex. So we'll get there one day. But I like that this is like a modern day mythology, which is really cool. Yeah. But do you have it?
I was just saying that there's one thing that I feel like has been common, at least lately. It's also, it seems like it's a mistake every time to switch directors. Like they did the same thing in Star Wars, and I mean everyone has a different opinion about that, but I felt like that was a mistake. When you have a vision for something and you change it, it's so weird and jarring, and I think that's one main reason. I don't know if Josh Whedon had done the whole thing, if we would have liked it. Maybe we would have if it's its own thing. Yeah, but it's just the mixed ideas about what it should be.
To me, ideally, film should be a piece of art, kind of like a book or kind of like a poem, anything. Like, it should be art.
Right.
And for some reason, it seems like there's so many movies nowadays that people have kind of forgotten that. And so you really have to go watch like indie movies if you want something that's more artistic. But Zack Snyder definitely views these as a piece of art, if anything, just visually. But that's why this movie I think is better.
Yeah.
Just because it's the completion of this guy's vision, and obviously he wants to go further with it.
Yeah.
We'll see if he gets to. I hope so.
Yeah.
But the other one, it wasn't a piece of art. It was two different people with two competing visions coming together.
Yeah.
One is trying to complete his vision while also trying to make it like Marvel. The other guy is just trying to make it like Marvel. And so it just ends up being like this mishmash of stuff. Yeah. Whereas it's really cool to see them accomplishing this vision.
But I think like they can do the comedy and stuff in a movie, just not in like pieced into one. Because they did like Shazam, and Shazam I thought was a good movie. Yeah. Like I enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, it's got to just flow with the tone of the movie and stuff. Because like there was comedy in this, but it fit the tone. Exactly. It wasn't just like brunch. It's like, but that being said, so there's our talk about the League. Let's talk about the villains of this movie. First off, let's just talk about Steppenwolf. What do you think about Steppenwolf?
I will say, I think this is more villains in general, but I told David while we were watching it that they all look like fossilized, like old tree bark. That's what they all look like to me. Whenever you take off,
old tree bark.
Yeah, because, anyways.
Or grasshoppers.
Oh yeah, let's talk about the parademons. Let's talk about the parademons first before we get to Steppenwolf.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I'm a huge Disney fan, right? There's a movie that I've watched growing up called Bug's Life. You've probably seen it before. It's a great movie, okay? Well, there's a scene whenever the grasshoppers are coming to where the ants live, and they're coming to get their food, right? Because the ants, they harvest the food through the entire season for the grasshoppers to come and get, right? And there's a scene whenever they start, like, breaking through the roof, right? And there's, like, these, you know, light beams coming through, and they all, like, swarm in. It reminded me exactly of the scene with the parademons.
Yeah,
two superhero fans just like cringing over.
Like, oh my gosh.
I'm telling you, that's the first thing I thought of.
Literally, during our break.
And then I was like, you know what, I'm not going to mention it because they're just going to make fun of me. Then, during the break, I was like, I have to tell them because there was numerous times where it reminded me of it, and I was like, let me say. And they're like, oh, we have to talk about it in the video.
She literally pulled up the scene and made us watch it. She was like, don't tell us. Like, don't tell me you don't think that looks like the parademons.
It does.
It does. It does a little bit, but that's because the parademons are supposed to look like insects.
Yeah, I'm not really saying the character itself. I'm talking about more the scene. Like, the idea of what's going on. I mean, yes, the characters themselves also, do remind me of grasshoppers because they have, like, wings and stuff. Anyway.
I just thought it was so funny that it's like that's what came to your mind when you saw it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen A Bug's Life, but I would never have
I would have never thought of it either. We're just watching the action scene like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And she's like, reminds me of Disney.
So that goes to show you what I think about when we watch superhero movies.
Yeah, so back to Steppenwolf.
Yeah. Okay. I liked his armor. His armor was really cool because it almost had, like, a life of itself. It looked like it was kind of, like, breathing and moving. So I thought it was really cool.
I can't wait to show you Justice League.
Really?
So yeah, that armor's not in it at all.
Oh.
He looks so stupid. He looks like an action figure in Justice, like the original one.
It's like, basically him without the armor, right?
He's got armor.
Okay,
you know what? Like while you're talking about it, like I'll pull it up.
As like once his armor is like not there, he's not nearly as intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't have his armor in the other one, that kind of already. Like,
well, he has some armor.
I'll show you a picture of
it. Not like that.
Yeah, no, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. This is a picture of him in the original one.
Oh, that's right.
It's literally so bad. He just looks like he looks like a stereotypical villain. He just looks like a regular dude.
He doesn't look that intimidating.
No, he's not intimidating.
Yeah.
And in the original, well, before I'll talk in a second. What did you think about Steppenwolf?
Yeah, I think I agree. Well, also, I don't know much about the comics. For a lot of stuff, so I had no idea who Steppenwolf was when I watched Justice League. I think I went to go watch it with my friend who knew about like the Darkseid backstory and stuff, but obviously he didn't show up in the original one. So I was like, I didn't really know who Steppenwolf was. He just told me he's like a general for him. So just for who he was, I think he looks kind of cool. He's a unique looking villain, but other than that there wasn't much to him, because we didn't have any of the story of why he's there or what he's gone through or what his motivation is. Like all that was missing, and he was just a villain
in the original
with
one?
some purpose. Yeah. So in this one we get to see all of that, and it makes a lot more sense. And I just thought he was a much more fleshed out character.
No, I thought that was the best part about him in this movie for sure, because you'll notice that's the consistent thing that I like, is that they're fleshed out more, and once again, that's why it's a 4-hour long movie.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have fit all this stuff in there because like it was really them trying to catch up with Marvel because Steppenwolf in the original one, like you said, he's just like a stereotypical bad guy, doesn't really stick out. You're like, oh, this is the like literally the Justice League before the Avengers like came up and everything. Like if you ask people what's like the like whenever a superhero group teams up, who's the most popular one, they would have said Justice League. Because that's like the most popular one of all time.
I didn't even know about the Avengers.
Yeah, I didn't know about the Avengers until the movies came out and everything. Whereas Justice League, people knew about that. And you're like, okay, this is the first time we've ever had a Justice League movie, other than they made like a really lame one back in like the 90s or something like that. It was like really low budget. I think it was just like for like to fight for rights or something like that. But this is like our first Justice League movie, and you're giving us this as a bad guy, and he's just like cliche and he's dumb. You don't know anything about like why he's wanting to do these things. Whereas in this one, honestly, I felt kind of bad for him. He was kind of a pathetic character. Like, he's bad, but you realize he's just trying to, like, impress this guy. Because he messed up last time, right? He came down and he was trying to do the job. He failed. And now he's in bad graces with Darkseid. And he's like, I just want to be at your, like, right hand again. And so he's just, like, trying. He's like, okay, I'll do this. And he keeps, like... It's pathetic because it reminded me of like in the Spider-Man Homecoming, whenever Spider-Man keeps calling Happy Hogan, he's like, hey, you know, I'm ready for the next Avengers mission. Like, whenever you're ready, like, you know, that's what Steppenwolf does. He keeps like calling. He's like, hey, Desaad, I've got the next mother box. I'm ready to be at Darkseid's right hand again. What? And Desaad's like, dude, conquer this world and then maybe in 50,000 more worlds you'll get another chance. Yeah. And like they even have like looks of like sadness across his face where he's like, aw. But then finally he gets excited because he touches one of the mother boxes and he gets this vision. And he realizes the anti-life equation, which I don't know exactly what that is, but that's a comic book thing.
Sounds like it was a way to control life, basically.
Yeah.
So.
I think that's what it is. I don't know. Comic book people will know that better. But he says the anti-life equation is found on Earth. And so he tells Desaad that. And Desaad almost like, it seems like he prays a prayer or something. And then he disappears and Darkseid shows up. And then it's like, Steppenwolf's like, yes, finally. Like, he like falls on his knees and like his armor comes off. And he's like... Lord, and like it's like you can tell he almost worships at this guy's feet too. Once again, it's almost like a very religious movie. Like everybody's worshiping these people, and he's like, man, like he's so excited because he almost like stumbled upon his opportunity to be at Darkseid's right hand again. Yeah, and Darkseid's like, finish the job, and this might be good for you. And so you feel really kind of bad for Steppenwolf, even though he's still terrible. He still wants to kill everybody. Yeah, but you realize this is just a pathetic guy who's just trying to like reach the top again. Like, he's just a slave to his sin, basically. You know? I gotta make it theological. But, I don't know. I felt bad for him, but then also his armor, once again. Amazing. Like, his armor, cool. It was awesome. Yeah. It was just like the way it just, like, moved, it was like, this is cool. And then it absorbed.
Yeah, like, it actually played a part in combat. It wasn't just for looks.
Yeah, like whenever they, like, the Themyscira scene, when he's fighting with the Amazon stuff. Also, real quick, the Themyscira scene... Those women were ripped. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, I just wanted to comment on that. Like, whoa, that was really impressive. Like, those... Like, I feel bad for the women who got in such good shape for this movie, and then their scenes were cut in the original one, because they were in really good shape. I was like, wow, y'all go. Like, these are, like, you felt like, oh, these are Amazon warriors. Like, this is amazing. But in that scene, they're shooting arrows at him, and you can, like, see, it's almost doing the same thing that Bruce's gloves did. Like, it seems like they absorb the impact and stuff like that, which is really cool. And almost like trap the armor in there, like trap the arrow and stuff. Yeah. It was really neat. But then, so there's Steppenwolf, and then we gotta talk about Darkseid. Yeah. What do you think about Darkseid? He's not in it that much, but...
Yeah, I was about to say, he wasn't in it that much, but whenever there was the one scene, which you kind of already mentioned it, whenever he came and Steppenwolf, like, got on his knees, and he was, like, kind of worshiping him, I was like, wow, this guy's, like, really powerful. Because you see throughout the movie how powerful Steppenwolf is by himself. Yeah. I mean, he's, like... throwing people around, killing people, like arrows, spears, all this type of stuff. Like, he's done a lot of damage.
Oh yeah, when he like throws the horse with the rider on it, that was crazy.
With one hand, it's like boom.
Yeah, like he has a lot of power. He's obviously really strong, and so when you see someone who's that powerful bow down to somebody else, you're like, wow, like they're if he's worshiping somebody else, then you know how powerful that person is. So that kind of put all of that in perspective. Yeah. So
what about you?
Yeah, I also don't know much about Darkseid. I have heard of him before. I think I've probably maybe seen one of the Justice League cartoons with him in it. But I don't really know the full extent of his powers, you know, and usually as a superhero fan, that's how I relate how, you know, someone...
How well they do it and stuff.
Yeah. So, since I don't know much about him, I think what Brienne said is accurate to, like, it seems like he must be very powerful. Yeah. If this guy is, like... worshiping him.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, he's basically... See, a lot of people, they're going to inevitably compare him to Thanos.
Yeah.
But the thing is, in the
Yeah.
comics, Darkseid came first, and I'm pretty sure that they based Thanos off of Darkseid.
Well,
So,
and that's
yeah.
another thing. I felt like in this movie, Steppenwolf felt like Thanos because he's kind of collecting his meta boxes
Yeah, that's
and
true.
he's
That's what
really
I thought also.
powerful.
That's fine.
So it's like Thanos is like bowing down to someone even more powerful.
Yeah,
so
it's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Darkseid, I think I've read a few comics where he's in it. I haven't read comics in like a few years or anything.
Yeah.
But I've read a few where he's in it. Like there's some pretty major ones
Mm-hmm.
where I'm pretty sure in one comic he eventually kills Batman.
Mm.
Which I think, okay, I will say this. I think that we saw like, whenever he touched the mother box for the first time, remember he got like that vision?
Right.
And we saw like, your reaction was really funny.
Yeah.
You're like, what the heck's going on? Because like it
It
cuts
was
to
just
like,
so random.
yeah, it
Like,
cuts
out
to
of
Wonder
nowhere.
Woman on a pyre.
Yeah.
And like she's
Yeah.
like being burnt, like so it was like she's dead.
Yeah.
And then it shows there's like a dead Green Lantern. I don't think you even saw that.
No, I missed
Yeah.
that. It was
Yeah.
pretty quick.
Yeah, there was like a
It's
Green
painting
Lantern laying there
inwards.
dead. And so you realize this is like in the Knightmare scene and stuff like that. And then Superman is seen like in his black suit, but he's like holding a dead body.
Mm.
And I know that one of the most famous, I think it's Final Crisis. I think that's the comic. And it's Superman, like the cover is Superman holding Batman's dead body.
Okay.
And I think Darkseid's the one who killed him. And in the comics, it's like Darkseid hits him with like these Omega beams, which those are the lasers that like go at like wherever, like they can just like turn and
Yeah.
it's really cool. But it actually sends Batman like back in time, and he like starts up in like prehistoric times. It's like really
Oh,
weird.
wow.
But my other relationship to Darkseid is Smallville. Because
Okay.
Brienne, you haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
But Darkseid shows up in season 10 of Smallville.
Oh, wow.
Oh, really?
And I've just got to say, they did it a lot better in this movie, because Darkseid is very disappointing in Smallville. It's
Oh.
so sad. Like,
Yeah.
it is a major bummer.
Dang.
But he shows up. But he's a lot more formidable in this one. But yeah, Darkseid, I thought he was pretty cool. He doesn't say a lot, but that's almost better.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's
And
the whole thing. Like, he's not having to be like, oh man, I'm so powerful. Like, he literally just stands there. And, like, the whole last scene, whenever, like, that portal opens up,
Yeah.
like, he's just standing there looking. Like, he's not coming, I thought he was going to come through the portal and fight.
Yeah.
Instead, he just stands there and looks. And you're like, that's more intimidating. Like,
Ultimate
he's basically just letting Steppenwolf, like, figure things out. And then whenever Steppenwolf finally gets killed, and his head, like, flies through, Darkseid just steps on his head and, like, crushes it. You're like,
Whew.
this dude's, like, ruthless. Like,
Yeah.
and you realize how big his foot was? Like,
He
his
was
foot-
bigger. I think
Yeah.
there is, like, when he talks to him, you see the size difference.
Yeah.
Like, he's bigger than Steppenwolf.
Like, this dude's huge.
Yeah.
And that shows how he's gotten bigger, because there was whenever they were going through, like, that war earlier on, like, the war between, like,
Oh,
with
yeah.
the Amazonians, the
Yeah.
Atlanteans, and the humans against Darkseid, that was, like, him when he was younger. He was, like, what, Prince Euxis or something like that? They didn't say his name in this, but that's what his name is. And he doesn't have his arm or anything, but he's got, like, the Omega symbol carved into his chest, basically. And he's a lot smaller there, right? But now he's like Darkseid, and it's like, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's why I want them to go forward with this movie, because like I'd like to see where this goes, because this dude's intimidating. He's pretty scary. So there's the villains, and then we got to talk about another character who shows up in here, our 7th member of the Justice League, the Martian Manhunter. So Brienne, what did you think about the Martian Manhunter?
Yeah. To be honest with you, I still am kind of confused as to like what he is or who he is.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even know he existed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's
So
true. Yeah.
I'm still kind of confused as to like what his role is
Mhm.
and why he's even in the movie. But he looks cool. So
Design's pretty cool, yeah.
yeah.
What about you then?
Yeah, he very much felt more like a teaser in this, especially since we didn't even get him in the original Justice League.
Yeah.
So, I think the first scene we saw him in, I was a little confused, like what his motivation for doing what he was doing was.
Mhm.
And then I really liked the scene in the end with Bruce. That was cool. I know Martian Manhunter from, again, the cartoon Justice League. And in that, I'm aware of like his powers and his abilities, and I have heard that he's like supposed to be really, really powerful. People have even argued he's more powerful than Superman.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see where they're gonna go with it, and if they do anything with it. I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
well, fun fact, Martian Manhunter also shows up in Smallville.
Nice.
Smallville really, they did like their own like Justice League basically, eventually. So it's
Yeah.
actually pretty cool, just obviously a lot lower budget.
Yeah.
And so you really don't see Martian Manhunter in like his full form a lot in Smallville. He usually just wear like a green shirt with like a red X on it. You're like, okay, that's, yeah. But in this movie, first off, the design, really cool. I liked it. But I do agree with you. I don't know what he was really, like, what his aim was in that first scene. I think it almost just felt like a tease there, because I did know, like, something about the scene set me off first, because what was going on was, you know, it's Martha Kent shows up to talk to Lois at Lois's house, at Lois and Clark's former apartment, you know. And they're sitting there talking and stuff, and Martha's telling her, like, about leaving the house and everything like that. And I was like, I commented to y'all, I was like, this is weird, because in the Justice League, like, the 2017 version, this scene was set at the Daily Planet, where Martha... And I was like, why did they refilm this? Because they were having very similar dialogue. But then you understand why, because immediately afterwards, Martha gets up and leaves, and then her eyes glow red, and she turns into the Martian Manhunter. And you're like, oh, okay, so that's why. Like, this is a totally different... Like, that wasn't even Martha talking. In the original Justice League, it was Martha. But now you're kind of like, okay, but so why? First off, that means the Martian Manhunter knew what was going on with Martha Kent. And for some reason, he thought it was important to show up to Lois and try to talk her into going back to her original life. It was kind of weird. I don't know why he was doing that. But if we go forward with this or something, maybe we'll find out. I don't know. Maybe it's because he understood that Lois is the key, and so keeping her living and happy is important to Superman. I don't fully know.
Probably one of the Snyder things, like, he has a vision for it, we just haven't seen it yet. Yeah. Or, you know.
And we might never, so that's the sad part. Yeah. But then after that, he turned into General Swanwick, which is the person from Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. And turns out he's been General Swanwick all along. At this point, I sang the Agatha All Along song from from WandaVision.
Yeah.
It was Swanwick all along. Yeah, because I had heard about this. Like, I had heard that Snyder's original plan was that General Swanwick was the Martian Manhunter. So I knew that was.
But it was still a surprise here, because you never see Sansa until he turns into him. So.
Well, yeah, that was the thing, and I also didn't know Martha was going. I mean, there was a thing in the trailer where Martha's eyes glue red, and I was like, oh, I guess that's Martian Manhunter.
Oh, okay.
But I totally forgot about that watching the movie. Like, I that wasn't, like, you're not remembering every single thing, and then, like, she did it, I was like, oh my gosh, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, that was really cool. And so, it's weird to me, though, because I'm like, I feel like there would have been a time for you to reveal yourself earlier. Yeah. You know, like, maybe, like, in that fight against Doomsday, they probably really could have used you.
Yeah,
but
true.
I don't know, maybe he was like, I think in that movie he was off in, like, Washington, D.C. and stuff, so maybe it was like, by the time he heard about it, it would have been too late or something, because that was a pretty quick fight, you know, so it was, like, over the course of, like, an hour, maybe. So there's always excuses and stuff there. But also, maybe whenever, Zod was, like, attacking and terraforming the planet, because literally he's there in that scene. Like, he's the one, like, he's like, saying, like, oh, Superman, like, he was there whenever Superman revealed himself. I was like, bro, you yourself are an alien. So Martian Manhunter, he's from Mars. He's, like, the last survivor of Mars. And so, like, I don't know, it's kind of weird. But I did like him. I thought it was really cool, especially at the end. He seems very nice.
Yeah.
Like, whenever he showed up to Batman and stuff, you're like, oh, wow, this guy, like, he smiled a lot. I was like, oh, he's, like, a very much softer person than General Swanwick portrays himself as.
He kind of reminded me of Vision. He's, like, he's wise and kind of logical, but he's also very nice. Yeah. So, I don't know. I just made that connection with him. I don't know why. But...
I also just love how chill Batman was in that final scene.
Yeah.
Like, Batman, like, he just woke up from, like, a crazy nightmare, and he just, like, gets up and just, like, casually walks out, and, like, Martian Manhunter, he's like, am I supposed to know who you are?
Yeah.
And, like, they
start talking. Talks to him first, and then he's like, I think so, right? Yeah. And then he's like, and who are you?
Like, who are you? And then he's like, oh, well, we're probably going to be needing help. Like, we could probably use your help. And then he's like, all right, bye. And he just, like, goes back in. I was like, wow, Batman, like, he's like, I'm done trying to understand all this stuff. Yeah. Going back to bed. Okay, but then, real quick, just the final things we need to talk about. We need to talk about how the movie ends. Because there's this epilogue, which sets up a lot of stuff. And so the first thing we got to talk about is Lex Luthor in that whole scene on the yacht and, like, the prison and Arkham Asylum and stuff like that. Yeah. What did y'all think about that?
Yeah, I think it was crazy for the police officer to even walk out of his little area that he was in. He, like, opened the gate, and I was like, there's your first mistake. You shouldn't have done that. That's, like, the equivalent of going and, like, locking yourself in a cage with, like, Hannibal. Like, you just don't do it. Like, you just don't. So he just, like, opened it, and he, like, continued to walk in, and I was like, oh, why are you making this decision? That's so bad. And then, like, creepily laughs at him. Yeah.
Yeah, what about you?
Yeah, I think I did feel like that when I was watching it, but then I realized, like, it made a lot more logical sense because it's not like a scary movie where like the monster's just maybe out there. You know, it's a person and they're restrained and stuff. So, but like what I was really interested in was happened after, because I don't remember if it was in the original Justice League. I don't remember watching that scene with Slade Wilson showing up. So I was curious what they were planning on doing with that.
Yeah.
If that's going to lead to anything.
Yeah, so in the original one, that scene is there, but it's like a mid-credit scene, I believe.
Okay.
But it's different. Because the beginning part's the same, where like they're at Arkham Asylum. But they do expand on it just a little bit, because they actually show Arkham Asylum and stuff like that. Whereas in this, like in this one, it actually says like Arkham Asylum, like home for the emotionally unstable or something. Normally, I think it's like criminally insane. Yeah. But like this is like a more PC term, emotionally unstable. Oh my gosh! I thought that was kind of funny. But most of the scene was the same, other than it was just expanded upon. But in the original one, you know, they see that it's like a guy laughing, and so you kind of get the impression almost the Joker broke him out, but you don't fully know, because the guy's like, ha ha ha, like just laughing. You're like, okay,
that's
something's
what it
weird.
Seems like.
Yeah, but then it cuts to the yacht scene, and it's all the same, where like Slade gets out there, like Deathstroke, he gets out there, and they start talking, but it's also a much shorter scene, where basically they just start talking very back and forth really quickly, probably like 30 seconds total. And at the end, Lex says, so I was thinking we might form a league of our own. And that's because in the comics there's a thing called like the Injustice Society, which to me is a very like self-aware term. They're just like, we know we're the bad guys. Yeah. But basically it's like it's all of the main villains of the heroes like banding together, and they're like, if they're gonna form a team, we can form a team. Yeah. Let's do this. Yeah. And so that's what they were teasing there. But they didn't do that here. Instead, like, it seems like that had to have been part of the original shot, because I doubt that they would have gotten all those same actors back for Joss Whedon's thing, being that it didn't seem like they were really trying to set up that much. Yeah. So I don't know, that was weird. Seems like maybe Zack just cut that part out because he just wanted to tease one thing. But he ends up just telling Deathstroke Bruce's identity. Yeah. Right? He's like, hey, Batman is Bruce Wayne. And Deathstroke's like, oh, well, in that case, I'll have some champagne. Let's talk.
I will say, I think they did a good job for Deathstroke. I think he was a good Deathstroke.
Yeah, that guy, he was in Spider-Man, like the Tobey Maguire ones. He was the bully. Okay. In like the original.
Really?
Yeah, in the original fight, whenever they're... whenever, like, Spider-Man's, like, dodging and, like,
what's
stuff.
What's his name? Harry's his friend. Yeah, it's like, I
don't remember.
But Dash or
something. Yeah, I think it's Dash.
Something like that.
Yeah. Oh, Flash Thompson.
Flash Thompson?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's Flash Thompson.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah, but, so, yeah, he's the guy in, Spider-Man, but it's the same dude. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, but then, so we talked about Lex Luthor and stuff, but then we got to talk about the Knightmare Scenes, right? Because that's almost how this movie ends, other than the Martian Manhunter and stuff like that. But the Knightmare Scene, basically Batman has another nightmare, which makes you wonder, where is he getting these visions from? Yeah. But he's basically, it goes off Batman vs. Superman, because the original Justice League, that was a big frustration. It doesn't address any of that stuff. And that's what really made you realize, okay, this is a way different thing than what Zack Snyder originally planned, because he dropped like a really big plot point for Batman vs. Superman. In that movie, Batman's been having these trippy dreams where like it's a post-apocalyptic society and Superman is evil, and you're like, what's going on? And then Justice League, none of that happens. You're like, what's going on? Yeah. Whereas you do get traces of that here. You get the scene where Cyborg touches the thing, and you see Wonder Woman dead, a Green Lantern dead, Superman holding some body, and then there was some other stuff there where I think other characters were dead as well. I don't remember, but and then at the very end, we have the scene with like the Joker and everything like that. Yeah. So what do you think about all that stuff?
Yeah, I know the very last one kind of stuck in my head, just because I know whenever we were getting towards the end, you were like, oh, well, the Joker hasn't come yet. And I completely forgot about the Joker. Yeah. I've seen the Joker movie, so I know that he exists and everything, but I completely forgot that he existed kind of like in this universe. And I was like, oh yeah, the Joker hasn't been in this movie. And so I was like, okay, well, I wonder if they are going to incorporate that. And I will say that his scene, like, really confused me, which I know he's kind of like an insane character. He's supposed to be kind of like a maniac, you know? So I know that he's, mentally not there, but what he was like saying and doing, I was kind of confused as to what was going on. Yeah. But I'm interested to see, I guess, where they'll take that, I guess. So.
Yeah. Cool. What about you?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I was kind of confused too what their goal was for that. The things I will say about Joker is I like the way he looked better.
Other than Suicide Squad?
Yeah, rather than Suicide Squad.
Yeah, he wasn't damaged.
But the thing that I thought was bad about him is, like, so one thing that I think a lot of people liked about The Dark Knight is like you can tell he has like he's not like fully insane. You know, his goals are kind of logical. Like he has reason to. This version of the Joker we saw, it seemed like he's like what he's saying almost doesn't make sense, and you can tell he's insane.
Well, I think there's different versions. Like every Joker seems to portray it differently. And so it seems like Jared Leto is kind of just going for the straight up insane.
Yeah, because I if that's what it is, then that makes sense what he was saying, because a lot of it was kind of just like, why is he saying that?
Some of it I actually couldn't even understand. Like, and we had the volume turned up pretty high. I couldn't fully comprehend everything that was being said there. So I'll just have to listen to it again. But that being said, I'm going to share my opinions. But before I do, I want to give you all some time to think. Because I'm going to ask you, what do you think? Like, we don't know we're going to get a Justice League 2 or anything. Most likely not. Mm-hmm. But, you know, we weren't supposed to get this movie either. That was like a result of fans being like, hashtag release the Snyder Cut, release the Snyder Cut. And now people are saying, hashtag restore the Snyderverse. And so they're wanting to go back to this. And they're wanting Justice League 2, Justice League 3. Because originally he had planned 3 movies. Right? And so I'm just going to ask y'all where y'all think this story could go, what y'all'd like to see, stuff like that. Okay. But while y'all think on that, I'd say the Knightmare stuff, I thought it was really interesting. The Jared Leto thing, I think that's kind of cool because in this movie, we actually have, this is just like a side thing for me, I'm a runner, and one of my favorite runner of all time is Steve Prefontaine. And there are 2 movies about Steve Prefontaine. One's called Prefontaine, and one's called Without Limits. And in this movie, we have both of the actors who played Prefontaine. In the movie Prefontaine, he was played by the actor Jared Leto, who plays the Joker. And in Without Limits, he was played by Billy Crudup, who plays Barry Allen's dad, the one who's in prison. And so I just think that's kind of cool. Both actors who played Prefontaine were in this movie. And so I just had to address it because I'm a runner. And Steve Prefontaine's awesome. And you should go watch those movies. And you should also subscribe to this channel. But I liked it. I thought it was interesting what they're going for there because it's kind of like this like you get just in the brief scene you have at the end there of the Nightmare thing, you get the idea of how desperate they are because of everybody who's gotten together. Like Batman has teamed up with 2 of his most important villains, like the Joker and Deathstroke. Mm-hmm. Like they're working together on this. You're like, oh man, how bad are things? Yeah. You're like, okay, things are really bad. Mm-hmm. And then Cyborg's there. What's her name? I think it's Mara, Aquaman's love interest. Yeah. And obviously Aquaman's dead. I think they showed that earlier too. I think they showed that like where Aquaman was dead in the vision earlier as well. Whenever Cyborg saw it. So Aquaman's dead as well. And so you see, okay, a lot of stuff's going on. Wonder Woman's gone. Oh,
and that's something we did mention earlier, but they're introducing this Injustice storyline.
Yes. Yeah. So basically, there's this comic book called Injustice. It's actually a series, and it was setting up this video game. I don't play video games, but I actually did read a lot of those comics, and the whole premise is that this character, basically there's this one character who the Joker uses the Scarecrow. It's another Batman villain. He uses his fear toxin to trick Superman into seeing Doomsday, the guy who killed him in Batman vs. Superman. And so Superman thinks that he's fighting Doomsday again, and so he starts like beating him up. He flies Doomsday into space to like get rid of him. And then the toxin wears off and he realizes that it's Lois Lane. He killed Lois Lane. And he flew Lois Lane into space. And the thing is, Lois Lane was also pregnant. And beyond that, guess what? Dark. So, it gets really dark. So he kills Lois, he kills his baby, and worse than that, the Joker had he had created a bomb that was set to detonate whenever Lois Lane's heart stopped, and it blew up all of Metropolis. And so Superman after that, he flies down, he plants his fist through the Joker's chest, and he's like, I'm done. And he gets mad at Batman. He's like, you should have killed him a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And so Superman's like, screw it. I'm becoming a dictator. Like, I'm done with, like, showing mercy. I'm done with that stuff. Y'all humans don't deserve for me to be nice to y'all. Mm-hmm. And so he just, like, becomes, like, this totalitarian ruler. And it's, like, this really cool story. And so they're doing something a little bit different there, right? Because obviously the Joker's still alive. And so they're not doing everything like that. It seems like really Darkseid is the one controlling Superman here. Because back in the scene with where Cyborg saw it, it seemed like Superman, he was holding Batman, I think. I don't know. Yeah. But Darkseid was there.
It could have been Lois Lane also, right?
It could have been, yeah. Well, it actually probably would more likely be that because they did allude to that. They said, and one thing where, at the very end, Aquaman's love interest comes up to him and says, "You shouldn't have let them kill her. Like, that was your mistake. You shouldn't have let that happen."
Yeah.
And you also go back to Batman versus Superman, which Batman talks about this scene in this movie. He says, "I saw Barry Allen, and he said that Lois is the key." And I don't think it was just the way that she was the key in this moment. Yeah. I think there's something deeper and more sinister. And so it seems like that's where they are heading with that. And so it's very inspired by Injustice, where Superman is evil. And guess what? Like, I think that's good. Like, I want to see that, because that will show you why Superman's awesome. Because it showed, like, the fact that he doesn't, like, he could use his power for that, but he doesn't, that's what makes him so cool. Yeah. It's his heart that makes him an intriguing character, not necessarily his powers. His powers, like, whenever his powers and his heart are held side by side, that's what makes him cool. Just his powers by themselves, not enough. But that being said, I've talked enough about that, unless you want to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to, I thought of another cool thing that he said. You know, I don't know if you heard it, since you said you couldn't hear a lot of stuff, but one of the things Joker was saying is he was talking about, like, all the people that Batman has watched die, and he's talking about, like, you let a boy wonder do a man's job. And he's talking about when he killed Robin, I think.
Yeah, so, which was alluded to in Batman vs. Superman.
So, yeah, I don't know. You know who Robin is, right?
Yes.
So there's multiple Robins. There's, you know, several have taken up the mantle, but one of them was killed by Joker. Yeah. So,
yeah. But that being said, what are your predictions going forward? What do you think? What would you like to see? What do you think it's heading, if we get to see those?
Yeah. I think the main thing I want to see is them battle Darkseid, just because I want to see the extent of his powers. I want to see how powerful he is, because we kind of already talked about it, but we see that he is super powerful, but we don't know to the extent of what, because he doesn't speak very much, which that alludes to, you know, the whole mystery of him. Yeah. I think that adds to it. So I would like to see all of them kind of take him on, since now the other villain's dead.
Yep. What about you?
I would really like to see the DC universe, like, slow down a bit. And kind of develop some of these characters more. Obviously, I think I would like them to continue and get to where they were headed with this, because that would be a shame to just leave it with all these cool things we got added. But I also would like to see a good Green Lantern movie, because you know he's an important character in the universe too, and more characters like Shazam. We have Shazam coming in, and how he's going to relate to them, and just kind of build this so when we have the next movie, we can focus on what that movie's really about and how all these characters come together to fight Darkseid or whoever it is. Yeah. So that's what I'd like to see.
That'd be good. Yeah. Like we do need more character development there, and I do like how this movie did give us a little bit more of that. That was useful and I think needed. For me, I'm a bit biased because they actually released the storyboards that Zack Snyder had developed for Justice League 2 and 3, and I've actually read those to see and obviously some of that they actually wrote those before they even completed this movie. And so some of those things couldn't happen because they changed some stuff in this movie before that, they did that. But some of that stuff, it was weird. Some of it I didn't like at all. But there were some things that were actually pretty cool and I'd like to see happen. But I'm not going to go into detailed explaining all those because you can go look up another video where they do that. But I would like to see them go against Darkseid. I would like to, like you said, get more character development and stuff. I don't know how they would do that if they carried on with that story, unless they just kind of pulled a Marvel thing and just pushed it off to where it's they've teased Darkseid now, and then they kind of it'd almost be cool if they did some individual movies and almost made them forget about the threat. To where there's, and then all of a sudden Darkseid just comes in and they're like, oh crud, we need to.
Well, and Darkseid says something as we're gonna have to do it the old ways, which I don't know what that means, but maybe that could imply it's gonna take him longer, a bit of time to get to them. So.
Which is cool because that also allows the studio time to figure out do we want to go forward with this. Yeah. But I would like there to be payoff there. If not, it's just a huge tease and then bum me out. But in the end, I think it'd be satisfying. This is weird to say. I think it'd be satisfying if Batman died. Not because I dislike the character or something, but I just think for some reason that would be a good arc for him. And, better than Iron Man's arc in the Marvel movies, because he had a good arc and his death was kind of earned in that movie in Endgame. But for some reason Batman's, it seems like that's where it has to end. It seems like it's building that would be the best thing he could do, because his whole thing is he's basically already given up his entire life to fight crime and do this stuff, so it seems like he's got to go out in this amazing way. So for some reason I think that'd be this really cool thing. That would be his whole thing going forward right now is he's making it up to Clark, right? Because he didn't trust Superman. Superman died for them, and so it seems like the best thing he could do is also die for the world.
Mm.
You know, and so I think that would actually be a really cool like closure to the whole story. So I don't know about that. But yeah, that being said, final thoughts. Brienne.
I really like the movie. I haven't seen the other Justice League before, and I can say that from not seeing that, I thought it was a good movie alone. And I think it would be fun to like eventually go back and watch the other one and kind of compare the two. So that way I can be on the same mind path as both of them. So
yeah. Who knows? Maybe when we do that one, we'll just do a reaction video just roasting it while watching.
Yeah.
So it's not the exact same as the one that Sean and I did, but we'll just like do a reaction as we're watching it.
Well, I feel like when you watch it, you're just gonna think like, oh, this is like what I saw, but less.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
And maybe like worse because you know all the other stuff that we've talked about that was not good.
Yeah. So what were your final thoughts?
I think that overall, like, there were some things that we definitely did need to know. Like, there's some where you can just assume what happened, but there's definitely a lot of stuff that was added in this that made more sense and helped you like and understand the story better. So I think they did a really good job. It felt way more continuous and more enjoyable to watch, even though it's a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, if you think of it in terms of like these are episodes, then it's really not that long, and it was just cool to see all that extra stuff. As a fan of superhero stuff, like I didn't mind that. But if you are going into it thinking like, oh, it's only better because they added more scenes, it's not just that. Like there's stuff that makes it a better story overall.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I'd say, I mean, as I've said multiple times, it's 1,000,000 times better than the original one, and so. I'm going to have to probably watch it a few more times to get a better perspective. But I'm actually planning on doing that because Sean also wanted to watch it, but he didn't get off work on time for us when we were going to watch it and everything. Yeah. So I think I'm actually going to watch it again with him. And I think what we're going to do is I think him and I are going to actually do section by section reviews, right? So we'll watch one chapter of it and then do a review of it. Mm-hmm. And we'll actually release those as different videos, or at least that's the plan for now. I don't know. I might get lazy and not do that at all. But whenever we did this, we actually recorded our reaction to the movie. And so we actually have like the whole movie, like our reaction film. 4 hours of it. So if I might go through and edit those, and then like I might just release like chapter by chapter things. So it'll like start with like our reactions and then cut to me and Sean reviewing it. I might do that just so that we can talk more in depth about stuff, even though we already talked pretty in depth in this video. We spent quite a bit of time talking about it, much longer than I expected. I was expecting like 30 minutes probably, but
it's because I'm here today.
It's because of Jonathan. We talk a lot. And Brienne, she has to go take a test, and she's probably like, "Oh man, I need to go take this because it's getting close to midnight." Yeah. But yeah, that being said, we might come out with those videos soon, and so I'll give more thoughts and stuff there because I probably will have more. But our final thing will be. If you had to score this from 1 to 5, and you can do 0.5, like you can do anything, 1 to 5, what would you give this this movie?
I'd give it a 4.
4? Mm-hmm. Okay, that's pretty good. Yeah. That's pretty good. What would you give it?
I think like 4.5.
Yeah. I'd probably land at 4.5 as well, because I'm sure that there are things I could think of that they could have done better.
Yeah.
But, by comparison, I would give the original movie like a 2. Mm-hmm. Like, just because I really, like, I don't know. Whenever I first saw the movie, I thought it was so good, but I think it was just because I was so excited to see the Justice League, and then I thought about it for 5 minutes after, and I was like, that movie sucked.
Like you said, it would be nice if you could just watch this version and not have ever seen the other one.
Yeah,
and then just know, based on that, how you rate it.
Yeah, so, I'd probably land around where Brienne's at, because that's what she did, and she gave it a 4, and so probably on its own, it's probably a 4, but... comparing it to the other one, it's probably like a 10. But I'll give it a 4.5 because it's not perfection, right? It's not. There's a lot of things like the CGI you mentioned, a few of the story beats, a few of the character things. Like Aquaman could have done some more stuff for him. Maybe there's probably a few minutes you could have cut out. Maybe some of the slow-mo wasn't necessary. There's a few things they could have fixed, but overall 4.5 I think is good. 4.5. Cool. That being said, you all have nothing else to say?
I don't think so.
All right, cool. Well, I'm David.
I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Brienne.
And this has been Now Let's Be Honest About Movies. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below and let us know what you thought about Zack Snyder's Justice League. Bye.
Bye.